Hello, today I'm going to be going over my digital field observation video report for my class EHD 50 for fall 2021. My name is Yamile Franco. And to start with, my general observations, some classrooms that really stood out to me were 5. The first one was talking about teaching with Jim Knight. This one stood out to me because of the way the students would respond to the teacher. They would answer in a complete sentence showing respect towards him. And he would also ask them if they were not to answer in a complete sentence. Number 2 was encouraging students to take action. This one I really liked because it was about real life situations and the teacher incorporated it really good in the lesson. Number 3 was when a lesson goes wrong. I liked this one because most of the videos were good videos and how the teachers did the lesson and everything and the students would listen. But this one was different because it showed an example of how sometimes the students are not as engaged as you would want them to be. Number 4, evaporating experiences. This one, I liked the way that the teacher had a real connection with the students, not just with one. She would have one-on-one conversations with all of them, building a real connection and trust. Number 5, the teaching illusion, the old man and the sea. I really liked this one because it was a really touchy subject and the teacher did a really good job with avoiding telling them what to think or what to believe in. To continue on with the situations that focus on teachers and students' behavior from those videos that I mentioned, the first example was that Jonas responded to Mr. Knight by saying context clues, and Mr. Knight asked him to further explain in a complete sentence, which he does right away. And number 2, the teacher asked the students what are some examples of police brutality, and the students start talking about when the police beat that guy to him, which is involvement of him and participation. And number 3, when Mrs. Wesley tries to bring up a question that Elsie had to her, she had a conversation with that student on private, but she tries to bring it in as a whole class. But they continue talking and she has to say shh. But the students continue having small conversations or looking at each other while the teacher's trying to explain. Number 4, a student tells Mrs. Menfro, I had a dream, and Mrs. Manfro says about me, how much you love school, while holding her face up close to her. And the 5th example was how the teacher tells the students you can look at this as anything you want, while she's holding a kid's Bible up to the class. Some important quotes that really stood out to me while watching the videos were the fact that many teachers would say good morning when the students would first come in. I think that was really important because it shows that they're starting off a positive environment right away. The second quote was, you're going to keep on going, Chris, even if the third time doesn't work. This is from the video of Mrs. Nunes' classroom techniques, which I really like because it's giving motivation to them. And then the third quote was, it's okay, you just made a mistake. This quote was different because it came from a student rather than the teacher, and it came from the video multiplying whole numbers and fractions. And the 4th video was, if you mess up a little bit, it's okay, that's how we learn. This was from the teacher from the video peer review using warm and cool feedback. And the last quote was, it's always okay to say something, even when you're not sure. And this was from Jim Knight from the first video that we ever watched, which was talking about teaching with Jim Knight. To continue on with my analysis and conclusion, I just wanted to point out how I really found it interesting that every teacher has their own way of teaching. Some seem to be walking around the classroom while teaching, while some just stay in certain spots. I've noticed that most of them, if they stay in one spot, it's by the whiteboard. And many also have one-on-one conversations with the student, and some also prefer to have conversation as a whole class or even in little groups. But either way, they all seem to check about the students' understanding and where they are. To continue about specific course context, the first one was everyone has a different learning style. This was important because teachers shouldn't just focus on one learning style, and I observed that in all the videos. Everyone seemed to either have a visual or some sort and would go to the students, have a one conversation with them, and they would figure out the way they would better understand. Number 2 was the learning centers. Many teachers use learning centers to get each student with engaging materials that they already knew. So they would sometimes have them going around or going to different centers so that they could see other students and work with other students. Number 3 was graphic organizers. There were multiple times that many teachers used visual aids. They were both used for the teacher when she was teaching, but they were also used as guides. For example, in one of the videos, Skip Counting Songs, she would have a poster and it had some of the fractions that they would use as lyrics. And then number 4 was promoting positive behavior. There was many videos that I observed that many would say good job or high five them or anything, and they would also say, I really like the way the student is cleaning up, or anything to bring attention to that student for doing a good job. For observations of students and or their communities, in the first video, encouraging students to take actions, the students focus on different problems. Some of them talk about police brutality while others talk about obesity. In the second video, Deeper Learning Through Students' Voices project, groups created a fundraiser for different organizations. For example, the one that caught my attention the most was one student had an organization for autism, and he would have a project with art. And then on the third one, it's Early Elementary Social Studies Part 1. The teacher talks about respecting one another and equality throughout the day, and she seems to have a special day for each student, and for the day they would talk about like their favorite things and their favorite colors, bringing equality to all of them. And then some surprises and questions that I got while observing the videos was that for surprises, I was really surprised at how the students would be involved. I didn't expect them to be as participating as much. And it was also surprising that only a few classes the students were not engaged. So that brought to me to the question of if they were maybe acting this certain way because they knew they were getting recorded. This goes for both the teacher and the students. And then for teaching diverse a group, I really saw that diversity was never really mentioned, which is a good thing because it shouldn't really matter. They're all important. All their needs were met, even if they needed a different way. It was really interesting seeing that. And it was really interesting seeing that everyone's being treated equally, which is really good for a classroom. And other than that, that's the end of my report.